everybody? This case study QB, and we are the political junkies. I'm trying something. I'm playing the music at the same time as you start. You guys can hear the music?
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? This case study QB. We are the political junkies, back at it again. We're gonna have fun talking politics, talk about the last week's news and some case study QB clips. But we got a special one for you today because we're going to play a special clip from my man, David and Day. They have their own podcast called Call Me Limbo, and I wanted to play a part of that and get a little insight on what they came up, how they came up with that. So that's coming later on in the show. First, let's go to my peoples. David, how you doing?
Hello, I'm doing well. I've just been tracking the invisible hand of the free market today with First Citizens Bank purchasing Silicon Valley Bank. It's amazing that almost a 54% jump in the stock price in one day. Yeah. Magic. I love free market capitalism.
Yeah, so let me ask you this question, because I personally, if I had money, I would dabble in the stock market, right? Mm-hmm. I remember when I watched a documentary called Revenge of the Electric Car, which was the sequel to Who Killed the Electric Car. But anyway, the Revenge of the Electric Car had this guy named Elon Musk and his company Tesla, right? So This is back in 2008. And I looked at his stock and I was like, oh, the stock is at like $20. I was like, man, I wish I had money I would put. So I called my dad up and I said, hey, Dad, throw some money into this stock. I think is going to be electric cars of the future. I mean, that's the most obvious thing in the world, that electric car in the future. So he put some money into it. Unfortunately, he took it out too soon. Oh, no. But it was 20 something dollars back then. Now it's split like 4 times and is at like I don't even know where it's at right now.
It's only at around 200 now.
Only around $200.
Yeah. Well, that's a 10x. I mean, in the stock world, that's not outlandish for the time period. You know, that's a growth stock kind of retirement plan, because what happens is people keep putting money in it. So as the price continues to go up and grow, so does your average price that you bought it, because you're no longer buying it at $20. Now it's up to $40. So then you're continuing to buy. That's what these mutual funds do. But anyway, I can get nerdy out on that.
My point is, I lost a lot of money. If I had money, I could have made a lot of money. But this is why I brought this up. I'm like, with certain things, I'll feel dirty. I'm not buying oil stock. I'm not buying defense stock, even though, you know, at this point, as progressives, as people who follow the news a lot, we know that if a war is on the horizon, it's like, okay, if I throw stock in a defense like Raytheon or somebody, most likely it's going to go up over the next year or two because we're going to war at some point. But I won't do it because I just feel dirty. How y'all feel? Let me give a shout out real quick before I go to my panel about that quick question. We just talking spur in a moment. The German, what's up, my man? Holly Horn is in the building. PJ Holly, thank you for coming through as usual. Carlos Cardona is in the building. What's up, my people? So what y'all think about that?
I try my best when I'm going through stuff. Like if I can't say like, oh, he has nothing in bad stuff. I don't follow all of my mutual fund things, but the ones that I intentionally click, I don't like to invest in those things.
What about you?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, you know, it depends on what the person's motivation is. Like I said, if you're looking at it like it's a casino and you're just gambling on shots and you're not really trying to, because that's really what it is, then you're not really investing in the core, because they're not going to worry if your $1,000 comes in or out. That's not going to change the dynamic of the company, right? The stock buying and sharing doesn't really change. But from an ethical point of view, I mean, it all depends on how much you're willing to participate in capitalism in order to try to create an alternative, right?
Yes. Tell me in the chat. I'm curious how y'all feel about investing in the stock market, and if there's any stocks you would definitely not. You know, what other stocks are outside of what we already named, you know, defense fund and oil companies? If there's any other stock that you wouldn't care for, and who else? So I went to David. Yeah. Did I go to Day yet? Did I go to you?
You didn't go to David.
It was just me. I just started it off this.
Yeah, you started off. So let me go to you, Day. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Like, I'm super excited to be here. Excited that you're gonna play snippet of the pod. This is like the first time we've ever gotten to like talk about the podcast while it's out. So nervous and excited for the people to hear it that haven't. But thank you for this opportunity. Members,
this is gonna be fun. Stick around for this. We're gonna have some fun with that one. Johnny, how you doing, my man?
Pretty good, pretty good. I mean, I was sitting here this morning, looking at your invite, thinking, what kind of stuff we're gonna probably talk about, the Tik Tok ban, this, that, and then what happens today. Boom, and now so here we are talking about this again. At some point in the show, we're gonna have to be addressing that issue.
You know what? Let's talk about it right now because I'm in a happy mood, and I'm like, all right, let's just get the sadness out the way, and then we could go back to happiness. Because I know what you're going to talk about.
I'll kick off with that saying, we're still in this bind, right? What people don't understand is that we've got this snowball that's happened with guns, right? Where it's so dangerous in society that normal folk who are pretty much kind of against the idea of just having deadly weapons around for no reason are getting deadly weapons to protect themselves. Because if I'm at a Burger King and somebody opens up fire, damn it, I want to be able to take them out, right? That's the mentality that's being created. Why? Because we have more guns in the country than people. The reason it's a problem is because we have fostered a sick gun culture. So while I understand it's people's rights, and we can talk about the Second Amendment and how it's a well-regulated militia to defend the state's rights against a tyrannical government, right? I mean, we could talk about all that. But really, it boils down to this acceptance of a relative sick gun culture. I mean, we could go into the desensitization of violence through video games. I'm not saying it causes violence. I'm saying the desensitization, picking up a gun. I've played them. I don't criticize things I don't know anything about. I've played COD. I know I can compartmentalize, and I can say it's like playing tag, whatever. But then that's just a justification. It's still you taking a gun and blowing somebody's head off. It's just that's that simple, right? And it conditions the masses to accept this as a normal part of our society, and to the point that it's commercialized. In the 80s is when the NRA shifted from being a hunting and gun safety organization to a political arm of the gun lobby. And since then, they've just flooded the whole society with guns everywhere. So what did regular people, peaceful people do? They say, well, I got to arm myself because everybody else is armed. And that just perpetuates the problem. And we don't really know what happened, like what the motivation was. Obviously, this person went to this school. It was a Christian school. They're being identified as transgender. There's speculation that maybe there was abuse there. And but that's all speculation. They say there's a manifesto, and but what is the solution? You can't sit here and say, oh, nobody's going to have any guns, because we have people on the left saying we need to arm ourselves against a tyrannical police state that wants to murder us, right? So I personally, I always go back to the root and say that it just roots and stems back to the overall sick gun culture that we've created over 100 years. And I don't know exactly what the answer is to backing us out of that. So you guys go.
It's so sad that every time like a Democrats get elected, they always you see the gun buys go up because they're always afraid that the Democrats are going to take the gun. Or after a shooting, you always see bullets and gun prices the amount of buys go up. So it's unfortunate. I think it's even more unfortunate the fact that our politicians, they cannot do anything. We go through the same cycle. Oh, Mitch McConnell, if he was, I don't know where he is right now. He was hurt the last time I heard, but somebody of that stature will come out and say, hey, we got to wait. We can't do legislation right away because everybody's so emotional, so we got to wait. But then he just wants to play the wait game, which 2-3 weeks later, when the emotions do go down and everybody's not thinking about it as much, then they just don't do anything.
So well, what happened when a judge was threatened? How long did it take for them to come up with bipartisan legislation to get more protection for the judges? Right. But these are our kids getting shot in school. So what is their answer? Their answer is a safe room that can fold out, that you can run into.
Or bulletproof book bags.
It's a
bulletproof book bags
section of the room.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
with, you know, bulletproof vests on them. But
Yeah.
nowadays, the capacity of the weapons that are being used go right through those anyway. So what's the use? And what kind of sick society even considers that normal? Sending your kid to school with a backpack that has a Kevlar plate in it because you're afraid they're going to get shot. This is normal. This is the United States. We have no moral authority to discuss any other country's internal domestic problems at all. Period.
Hey, what you think, buddy?
There's two things. I think first and foremost is addressing the desensitization, us being desensitized to violence. And I think what really gets to the root of it is it's deeper than just the guns. Guns to me are a symptom or a mechanism through which our violence can be funneled. But I think the violence that we have within our hearts, as you know, oh my God, like to imagine that, oh, Republicans just got into office, let me buy some guns. Oh, Democrats got into office, let me buy some guns. The fact that we see our fellow citizens as the biggest threat that we have, when in actuality it's the people in power who are committed to oppression of us economically, socially, etc., that scares me. Because if we remove guns, it doesn't remove that violence, and we'll find a new way to perpetuate. Look at how we talk to each other on social media. Look at the way that we silo ourselves into communities where people only think like us and there's no community that's fostered. To me, that's, of course, I believe in the gun regulations and all the things that make sense. And of course, we can talk about the Second Amendment and how its interpretation has changed throughout the Supreme Court. But for me, it's most important for us to talk about the violence here and here, because that's the only way that we can internally cleanse it, so that externally, the way that we interact with each other is different. But taking that part aside, what breaks my heart the most is how we have set our children up as a society for failure. I said, the fact that we can sit here children are smart. They can see here, they're sitting here, they're being told, you got to wear a bulletproof backpack. You got to do this, you got to do that. They're not stupid. They know that the adults around them are not actually taking the action necessary to protect them, whether it comes to gun violence, whether it comes to climate change, whether it comes to an array of things that specifically are causing anxiety and depression amongst our young people, which is demoralizing, and it ensures the fact that they become, why get involved in politics? Why be patriotic? Why do all these things when my country is insistent on making sure that we will never address the root causes of your issues, but we will get up there and pander and talk about how much we care about the youth, or, oh, this is so sad, hopes and prayers. It's like, no, listen, I'm a spiritual person. I pray all the time, but faith, my favorite scripture is faith without works is dead. People want to have all this faith that things will change, but are nonchalant about the work required to get us there. And these people are sent to do this work, and they're afraid. It's not that people, you mentioned Case, it's not that they can't do legislation, it's that they don't have the moral courage or political will to do it. And all I can think is, what are these children going to be like 10, 15 years from now when they continuously are in this traumatic cycle?
Yeah, they're growing up too fast, and I'm about to go to you, David. I just want to give a quick shout out to Bryce Smith. Thanks for coming through. Paul Patrick and Super Patriot. Much love to you guys. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I remember, I was just thinking about this. I was thinking about a few different things, but I was like, I remember my first ever like school lockdown drill in 5th grade. And I was like, I grew up about 3 hours from Denver, and it was like around the time that Columbine had happened. And so I was like, I remember hearing about that and thinking that it was really close. And now I think about like my 6-year-old niece who's in kindergarten and is coming home and talking about like the safety drills that she has to go through at school. Like, it's just, it's tragic. It's absolutely tragic. Like, we have let down our kids. And I was like, I'm always, maybe it's my toxic positivity, but like, I'm always trying to look for signs where like maybe things are improving. And in Colorado, there's a few different gun laws that have been working their way through the legislature here. And I was like, one about expanding our state's red flag law to allow like psychologists and teachers to intervene to take away someone's firearms, repealing current limits to allow people to sue like gun manufacturers, increasing the minimum age to buy a firearm from 18 to 21, and then requiring a 3-day waiting period to buy guns. And so I was like, do I think that all of these things, am I naive enough to think that all of these things will stop all gun violence? No, but are the people in power here at least trying to do something? Yeah, they are, and that gives me a little bit of hope that maybe that there are some people somewhere trying to do something about this.
Yeah. Let's. I don't know. I'm curious to see what is going to come as a result of today's shooting. But I think we're truly becoming desensitized. I went to do a quick lookup, and I saw multiple shootings. Like, I couldn't even find exactly the one from today because we got one going on in Dallas. This one going on over here. It's just so
there have been a couple in Denver in the last 2 months. Yeah. Yep.
It's crazy. So hopefully we could get back into some brighter, some happier times in this show. We definitely got a good lineup coming. I'm curious to see if we have any disagreements. I forgot to talk about this a little bit before the show. We might have a no-cow zone, right? Where we're going to be talking about Utah. They just passed a social media law for children. And we're going to get into the details. And I'm curious what Johnny thinks as an IT kind of minded person. And then I want to know what Day and David thinks of that. It sounds to me like something that maybe even Denver might, Colorado might do, David. So I'm really curious what you think about that. And then another thing that we're going to talk about that might be a no-cow zone is if you are a mayor, should you charge? Okay, let me approach it this way. In DC, the mayor wants to increase the amount of camera traffic machines, meaning that they can automatically
give red light cameras.
Red light cameras automatically give out tickets. But one thing that apparently I was looking for an article on it, but I couldn't really find it. But in this Fox News clip, they said that the mayor wants to charge rich people more money when they find them, and I guess charge people with not as much money.
They do that in other countries.
So that's going to be. So we'll talk about that, Johnny. I definitely want to talk about that. And then, of course, what I've been already teasing, a little clip of Call Me Limbo. We're going to be talking about that. So right now, though, we're going to do a Twitter flurry where we're just going to go through a couple tweets. So let me bring this up. So this one, it's kind of small. Let's see if I could bring it up. This is from More Perfect Union, and it says, a Union Pacific train has derailed in California with 55 train cars coming off the track. A fuel leak from one of the locomotive is being addressed right now. So this is just a many trail derangement. And by the way, guys, you could just jump in with anything that I have here, but I'm going to just keep it moving, but feel free. Here's another one. Steven Donziger. This is breaking from today. Dozinger. In a huge blow to the rule of law, the U.S. Supreme Court today let stand Chevron's prosecution and 3-year detention of me after helping indigenous people win the historic Amazon pollution case. This is a Korshik, and correct me if I said his name wrong. He's the only person, or one of the people that dissented, which is really interesting. He said, our Constitution does not tolerate what happened here. So basically, they just upheld his sentence.
That pissed me off.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. This is an interesting one.
You're still on the first tweet, just so you know.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Thank you for letting me know that I have to click that button. Okay. The burn identity. Oh, so you didn't even see the last one then, right?
We didn't see it. Now we see it.
Now we see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. Just to show y'all real quick. All right. So the burn identity, she put this out. French people protesting against Macron is getting next level. Remember how garbage collectors stopped picking up the trash? Now farmers are dumping waste, manure, and tires in front of county admin buildings. See, to me,
France.
I don't know. I don't live there, but I wouldn't dump it in front of admin buildings. I would dump it in front of their house Go to their house.
But they spend most days there. Most of the time of the day is spent there. You know?
Well, I'm sure there's a case for doing it in a pub to the public sector rather than doing it to their private property, right?
But the public people got to clean it up, right?
I get that. I get that. But you do see where you could get on touchy ground in any place because there are still private property laws. Until we abolish private property, then you're still going to deal with that. So I could see why they would do this, to be honest with you.
Yeah. You know what? Let's have the TikTok.
It's petty for me.
The TikTok talk right now, since I'm bringing this up, it says TikTok is a huge threat to the U.S. because it shows things like this, and you see the TikTok watermark here. I don't know if
the police are a huge threat to the U.S.
Exactly.
Well, that's the point. Is the TikTok gives people a free reign to share this kind of video content? Because one thing, a friend of mine, Marcus Farrell was on Bernie's for 2016 campaign as his Black Outreach director, and he said. Somebody asked him if he thought there was more racism now than before, and he goes, "No, there's just more cameras."
Oh, okay, yep, there you go. So go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just gonna say, David and I talk about this a lot. Is that really what I think is insidious about the TikTok ban? Is that TikTok has been an incredible galvanizer for Gen Z and millennials, for them to share political ideology, to garner traction, like even biasly work volunteering with the Marianne Williamson campaign. It's insane, like her growth on there. I'm using TikTok more, but like as I go up there, I'm like, wait, how did she double her following? It's because they're progressive on there, like heavy, in a way that Twitter and Instagram is not. So of course they want to shut that down.
I heard they're on a different algorithm. I wouldn't be surprised. From the Twitter files, we see an example of how the alphabet men, in our government, how they approach social media. So they, over time, co-opt them to a certain extent. And you saw how at the beginning, the Twitter employees were trying to standoffish, not to give too much information, but over time they did get co-opted. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's going on at YouTube, that's going on at Facebook, etc.
Oh, absolutely.
And
everything's Patriot Act.
Exactly. So I don't know I think that TikTok I'm sure they have their faults, like all of the other ones. They probably spying and doing stuff, but I don't think they're complying enough. I think, and
they're
that's
gonna
why
ban our channel for violence. You might want to scroll off this one. I'm sorry, we've been on this.
Right? I was like, I've got my hands covering.
We're over here on the side having a side conversation. People's eyes are stuck to this.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, you're right. I thought you said that they were going to ban our channel YouTube for us talking about how they're co-opted by the Alphabet Boys. But,
well, what's interesting about the TikTok thing is that they've actually it has nothing to do, because our government already spies on us. We've already proven that, whether it was the Twitter files or our own knowledge of how these platforms work, right? They tell you in their terms of service that we're going to give your information to whoever we want. We're going to sell it because that's how we make money. Okay, Facebook has famously done this, and they have more detailed information about you than Twitter will ever have because of the way Facebook's platform was built. They have very targeted, you could target, actually there was a story of a guy who targeted an ad directly to his roommate. Only his roommate could see it. That's how specific you could get with targeting ads. Okay. Oh, wow. And so now if you don't think that the Chinese government, the Russian government, or any other government who has any kind of IT department in their government has already harvested all of our information from social media that is available, then you're insane. And what TikTok is proposing to do is they're going to create a firewalled US-based area that they're going to open up to US contractors and third-party moderators. How much more reasonable? That's more than you get out of our own US-based social media. So how much more transparent can you get? I personally don't see the problem. Like, what kind of information is the Chinese government going to get about us that they don't already have, that they're going to use against us in any kind of national security way?
No, I totally agree 100%. As a matter of fact, I like that Jamal Bowman is really at the forefront of the defending TikTok. So let me play a quick clip from him.
Another subject with you. Congress held hearings on this week on a proposal to ban the popular social media app TikTok. Critics argue the Chinese-owned platform poses a serious national security threat. You are one of the few lawmakers from either party who has vocally opposed such a ban, and you've expressed concern about what you call the xenophobic anti-China rhetoric surrounding the issue. Can you explain your position a little further?
So Republicans cannot govern on the issues, so they often use fear-mongering tactics to display themselves as being strong lawmakers. So whether it's fear-mongering as it deals with the border or the debt limit or crime or China, this is how they govern. And I'm disappointed that some Democratic lawmakers are responding to them and acquiescing to this rhetoric. We need to take a step back. And if we want to really analyze social media, the harms that happen on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, I can argue, are far worse than what TikTok has presented. Facebook knew Russia was colluding with Trump in 2016 and looked the other way. They did nothing to stop this from happening. Our data is being bought and sold on the open market by countries like China and private corporations in other countries. So to ban TikTok is to, put a Band-Aid on maybe a small scab versus what's happening in the whole social media landscape. We need a national data privacy piece of legislation, and that's what we should be focused on, not scapegoating TikTok.
Bam! That's what I wanted to get to, that part right there, because we need to look at the holistic issue and not just one organization, TikTok. We need a Bill of Rights for the internet, yes, where we can have more control over our privacy, over our data, maybe even get paid for our data, because that's how, like we just said, they're selling our data, so maybe we should get a royalty from that or something. In other countries, they have the right to be forgotten, meaning that like after 10 years, you can't have they can't go back to your data. So for example, I know there's people who put inflammatory stuff from like years ago. I remember Jake Uger got into some trouble that he put on the original The Young Turks website. Like that would be forgotten because it was 20 years ago. You can't use that in today's. So stuff like that needs to be explored in America, definitely. All right, so let's move on to a little bit more flurriness.
What about child? Were you gonna touch here on child limits and things like that? Parental controls.
You know what?
We should that later.
That's a good segue because that's kind of in this realm. Let me see if I can find it, but
I'm excited. I know nothing about this, so.
While you're pulling that up too, I was like,
please.
I knew that when I signed up for TikTok that Beijing would have access to my data, and I didn't care. Like, I really didn't care. I was like, I've been to Shanghai. It was very peaceful. All it was people dancing in the parks. Like, yeah, I couldn't access Google or WhatsApp or anything like that, but like, it felt peaceful. It did feel a little Big Brother-y too, but like, but no, I was like, but I knew that what I was signing up for. I guess my question would be if like younger people do.
Yeah, I'm curious, Super Patriot. Tell me what you disagree with as we go to this clip right here. Boom, and then
as lawmakers on. When it goes into effect next year, children and teenagers in Utah could lose access to their social media accounts or face a barrage of restrictions aimed at shielding them from platforms some call addictive and dangerous. The law, just signed by Utah's governor, is expected to face legal challenges because of the wide-ranging impact on companies like TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook, in addition to requiring age verification and giving parents access to their children's accounts. The law prohibits kids under 18 from using social media between 10:30 p.m. and 6:30 a.m.
So let's stop it right there real quick. Let's take a pause right there. So here are the
this
things.
is a completely different conversation
Yes.
than privacy concerns, right? Can we make sure everybody compartmentalizes? This is a completely different conversation. I'm a parent. I have a kid who was stuck in his phone ever since he was a teenager. So I know it's my responsibility as a parent, but this also goes with games on the phone, not just social media apps. Video games. He would get home. I had to set a limit, like you can't start playing your video game until 4 o'clock. So whether you have homework or not, because then he would just come home and say, I don't have homework. So I said, okay, I'll just set a time limit. So now whether you have homework or not, so you might as well do your homework, because now if you're not getting your homework done, right. So you're constantly battling with this. Truly, and as somebody who's in the recovery community, I understand addiction. It's not just about drugs. It's a mental trigger. We're all addicts. We must understand that everybody is addicted. It just depends on whether the addiction is harmful to you and whether it controls your life. But we're all addicted. You could be addicted to a morning walk. If you don't get your walk, you could be cranky all day, right?
Yeah.
So this is a different conversation about protecting kids. Now, I personally don't think the government, here we go again with mandates, stepping in, telling you that you got to, like your kid, and now we're getting into this slippery slope of government overreach.
Yeah, I hear you.
Right. So I don't think this is the answer. I do think the parents, there should be technical answers to it. Like parents should have like parental controls of their children's phone, like you do with the TV, things like that, what they can watch, what they can't. So that, because you're the parent, that is not a democracy in a family. Right? It's a benevolent dictatorship. You have a responsibility to your kids to teach them, because they're dumb. They don't know nothing, right? And you have to walk them through a lot of stuff. And if you just let them do whatever the hell they want to do, a lot of times they'll go in the wrong path, right? So your job as a parent is to guide them in the right path. So I do think that there needs to be technological answers. I don't think there needs to be government answers.
See, so that's interesting. I lean in your direction, Johnny. As me personally, I consider myself like a libertarian progressive. Like I want people to decide for themselves. I want parents to decide for themselves. It's just that I don't even know. And people, let me know in the chat. I remember back in the day when cell phones were still kind of getting popular, that they used to have a cell phone for kids, and I mean younger kids, like maybe 12 years old. That they would have like 1 or 2 numbers, and it's your mom and your dad. And you didn't have access to anything else. Like that was it. Nowadays, I don't think that exists because it's not profitable. Like
they do have watches. No, they do. They have watches for kids where you can just call your mom or whatever, or a couple numbers, and it doesn't have a bunch of apps on it. So like I said, I agree with you. There are technological answers to this problem, but the question is, well, what is it? Come on, everybody knows. Is there any profit in it?
Yeah, that's the question.
Profit to the company to give a solution to parents for this, because once the kids grow up, whatever, it's just like kind of cycling through new people.
Yeah. Because it's kind of like alcohol, where kids can't go to a liquor store and just buy, until they're 21. Here, there are a lot of depression issues that you hear about from young women or young girls as a result of social media. Me personally, I would like for every device to have a feature that I can put like, hey, this phone is somebody that's under the age of 18, and then as a parent, I can put in the passcode to like take it out in and out of that feature. So now that phone will never touch porn sites. It will never touch, certain approved social media, or if no social media, or maybe have this restriction 10:30 to 6:30 a.m. But I want it to be according to the parents to be able to put that on their kids. David and Day, what do you all think about?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things. So I'd be curious, one, who is enforcing this? And so kind of like what Johnny was saying, like, is it a technological solution that like where the tech platform is just automatically cutting people off and you can't get in? I was gonna say, I have time limits set up on my social media apps, and I ignore them regularly. After 15 minutes, it pops up and it says I've reached my time limit. I'm like, I still need more. Give me more. Like Britney Spears said. But like, so yeah, I'd be curious about that. And then I guess the other thing, I'm thinking about like when I was probably, I don't know, about 16, and starting to come of age and realize, oh my God, here I am in rural Nebraska, knowing that, like, realizing that I'm gay, and then like starting to kind of use the internet to start exploring communities, or like just to be able to navigate that boundary or that limit as to like seeking out people who are like me. And at that point in my life, I don't know if I would have wanted my parents knowing everything that I was looking at. And so I guess that's the tension where I'm at, where I'm like, where is it? Is there a difference between kids who are 0 to 14 and 14 to 18, or like 13 to 18? Like, I don't know what the age range would be.
It would be up to the parent, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because I know exactly what you're saying. There's a huge difference between, you know, somebody surfing the web at 12-year-olds and somebody surfing the web at 15 years old. And you would hope, it's like you said, it depends on the relationship too, because if your parents are intolerant and not accepting of certain things, and you just know that, so you're like, I can never talk to my parents about that, right? Then how do you have that conversation at all, at any age?
Yeah. Much love to Joy to the World. Thanks for coming. Is in the building. Mastermind Hour is in the building, and PJ Chris is in the building. Much love to y'all. I like what Joy to the World said, where like if somebody who's under the age of 18, maybe if they buy the device, I don't know if they buy the device on their own, are they grown enough? But let's say they go with a parent, they buy the device. The device should have it by default. Like the default setting is that it's in that child protection mode, and is up to the parent to then go in to turn it off. So, because you know how a lot of times, like when you sign up for something, they uncheck what they don't want you to have to go in and do work. I'm trying to think what's the best way. I hope I'm articulating this well. Like to opt out. If you want to opt out of something, they usually opt you in right out the gate, and it's up to you to then opt out. So in this case with cell phone, they should opt in every device into that child protection mode and make it do work that the parent would have to go. Because you might have an irresponsible parent that would be like, I don't care. So if they don't want to do the work, then fine, your child is just going to be locked away in child purgatory. But let me go to Dave Day on this before we move on.
Did you say this was a no-cal zone?
This, I said, hold on. I said that this.
Remember
no
this,
cancel
y'all.
Zone. No cancel zone. So everybody, no judgment. We're going to hear what they got to say. Let's hear it.
I'm thinking out loud. So I will admit my bias. I'm not as libertarian leaning as some people are, but I also understand finding that sweet spot and balance. But I guess for me, when I think about it, I'm like, earlier we were all talking and we recognized the danger of like the danger that comes with the lack of governmental regulation when it comes to guns. Or I think most of us would sanely agree that, hey, kids can't buy cigarettes under the age of 18, can't buy alcohol under 21, things of that nature. I know people have issues with certain ages, but like, I guess maybe because I just finished reading Johan Hari's Stolen Focus, I'm like, given all the data that we have on the effects of social media on the brain mimicking drug addiction, I'm sort of confused why in certain cases we can see the need for government to step in, given that when left to the free market, what we're requesting is antithetical to their business model. Case in point, lead and paint. Like, it wasn't profitable for the people who were, when lead was in paint, to take it out. And yes, there were people who would probably argue, oh, it should be our choice whether or not we put that lead in there and let our kids die or not. But the government recognized, I think, on a holistic perspective, one, it doesn't matter that it's antithetical to your profit because this is terrible. And then two, I'm sorry, as a parent, if you do this, you are actually putting your child at risk. And so taking that step was a necessary measure. Now, if they were banning social media as a whole, wholly different conversation. But between the hours of 10:30 and 6:30 a.m., which, I mean, unfortunately, you know, as my mama would say, ain't that nope but 7-Eleven and legs. That's the time when a lot of parents aren't maybe monitoring their children as much. And that lack of sleep is going over into poor performance in schools, coupled with other things. And then the fact that the parents have access to the accounts, I think, is important. They verify age, which also it allows us to protect, hopefully, against predators and people who do that type of work, at night and things like that. So I don't really have, it's all about how it's written, but I'm not totally mad at the impulse personally.
I don't think that's a cancel stance. I mean, this is a difficult one to look at, because the points you bring up are about like regulating seatbelts, helmets on motorcycles. I mean, we do that because as a society, we come to accept, whether it's been conditioned and manufactured consent or not is another discussion, but we've come to accept certain things for safety, consumer safety. And this could fall under, in your argument, a consumer safety concern, right? The amount of time, the intake. You don't see pornography and things like that on network television.
Yeah.
There's the FCC says you can't show that stuff. You can't curse. You can't say certain curse words, things like that. You can't expose it to the family that can be walking around the living room.
Yeah. And why not somebody? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I saw somebody. I don't know if it was on Twitter or not, but they played advertisement from years ago, maybe 40, before seatbelts were legalized or mandated, and it was talking about how they want to take away my freedom to
we're gonna be a communist country pretty soon.
We're gonna live in a communist country. Yeah.
Same with drinking and driving. That was a thing too. Those same arguments.
Same there.
And now it's like second nature. We know that it saves lives. I wish I had new people in my own personal life who were forced to wear it. But anyway. So I'll be curious, and I'm gonna go to David and Dave to finish this off. What happens with this? That's one of the good things about states, is like laboratory of experiments. So they're going to experiment with this, and we're going to see maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now if the children coming out of Utah are like their IQ jumped like 20% or something like that, and we'll go from there. Go ahead, David.
Maybe this is just the wild, wild west in me, but I'm like, if we're gonna start making kids work at 13 years old, and they're considered adults, then exactly. Then all right. Then are we gonna allow that? I'm not saying like let them have smoke breaks, but like, are they gonna be able to have like a TikTok break, like in order to like maybe decompress or something like that? Like, but I also agree. Like, but Dave's talked about this before. Like, I love this idea. It feels radical. It feels transformative about like, you know what? Like, let's not let kids work until they're 18 years old. Let's give them like a universal basic allowance.
I was thinking about that today, but go ahead. Finish your thought.
Yes. And so it's just like, you know what? Like, let's let kids be kids first and foremost, not exposing them to gun violence in schools, not exposing them like to the like, not making them so that they have to go on a screen in order to get stimulation and feel like socialization because the streets aren't safe to like play outside, or that maybe they don't have access to parks. Like I don't know. I really like, I've been thinking a lot about it once Dave said that, about like, let's just let kids be kids. And then on
another note, before you close this topic, is other countries like China and other countries have instituted already limitations on how long the apps can perform. So like you can only do 60 minutes of whatever app a day. 60 minutes. That's it. I mean, think about that in comparison to people that be up in their phone all day long.
Yeah.
We talk about freedom so often, but never the freedom from addiction, the freedom from these types of things. And I said we allow the right to dominate the conversation about protect the kids, but what they are really addressing is stuff that's irrelevant. The children aren't being harmed from. But this is an actual example of, hey, many other countries recognize the impact, but in America,
it's all about freedom.
For the sake of liberty, we will literally drive ourselves to death when you don't have to do that. And I think sometimes we don't talk about the freedom from enough, because at the end of the day, if I don't want the freedom to drink to have lead in my water, I want to be freedom from being sick, because those things aren't regulated well. And maybe that's the shift we need to have in the country.
We got to move on because we got to talk about the water crisis. I'm about to talk about the Call Me Lingo commercial. And also, I did an interview with Shama Sawant, so I'm just going to tell you all to check out the channel. Go watch that. It was a blast. I don't know if we're going to have enough time for me to talk about that, but let's go to this right here. And I'm going to play. This is our buddies. David and Day have their own podcast called Call Me Limbo. And we're going to, I was listening to it. And I heard a part of it that was so good. This is the advertisement I want you guys to hear. And we're going to talk about it with Day and David afterwards.
Do you derive your intrinsic self-worth and value based on your levels of productivity? Are you a human doing? A human being? Working extra unpaid hours in your corporate job in the hopes of being promoted, only to have your labor further exploited by the company wanting more of your time? Or did you complete an unpaid internship just to gain experience that should have been learned in an entry-level job? Well, if you answered yes to any of these questions, you might be suffering from internalized capitalism. Good news though, Big Pharma's got a pill for that.
There you go.
Introducing Plan C. For the low cost of shipping jobs overseas, you too can be separated from the means of production. But wait, there's more. Be one of the first 10 callers to place your order by participating in consumerism and receive our Illusion of Choice discount. Don't delay, and definitely don't sleep on this deal without feeling guilty. Call now. Plan C, because those bootstraps won't pull themselves. We have...
Yeah, is that it?
Big Pharma background music.
Yeah.
I know. I gotta get my music
may
skills
include.
up.
Yeah.
That's next. The next step is to add some music.
Let me just give it a
And
quick
then
shout
you
out.
gotta add a side effects.
Yes.
Side effects section, because the side effects of those pharmaceuticals is always like a long list of shit.
Uh-huh.
At the end,
Worse
right?
And
than
death.
what it does
And
for
death is
Yes, always end with death.
Yeah. That how at the end they speed up. Like you could have erectile dysfunction, or you could get this a bloody eye, and all
anal
this other stuff.
seepage. Like,
Yeah.
what? Oh, I'm gonna be shitting my pants all day. What?
Right. Let me give a quick shout out to some Janice Anderson, Miguel H. I know came in the building, and I thought I saw one more person, but much love to y'all. Yeah, so I love that so much, and I'm looking forward to checking out the rest of that. And how do y'all come up with the concept real quick?
Oh.
I
David's
joke
a
and say
genius.
that it's my mental illness, but no, I was like I told Dave before we got started. What was really interesting is that I feel like I tend to be much more pointed in my message, scripted, and so the discussion between the two of us when we were getting started was like, how can we make it seem like just a conversation between the two of us seeking to understand one another and our different perspectives and like our different like lived experiences, but getting to a lot of the same kind of leftist ideas. And then, and so just, and what's been really cool too about it is I've known Dave for, gosh, almost 9 years, almost 10 years. Like, and I've learned more about you, and I feel like that this podcast has strengthened my friendship with him, and I also feel like it's been really you just don't pick it. That's hilarious. Yes, and so that's the thing. It's like it's probably like something that I've heard with like people with ADHD is that they have an ability to recognize patterns really easily. And so like that's the thing, just observing or listening and just like being and just sitting and trying to be still and take in everything that's happening around me. There's so many patterns. And so I'm like, how can I take this message that that I have in my head, make it sound familiar in terms of this ad structure, but then also deliver like a really pointed message in a short amount of time. And Day has an incredible ability to edit me into like the most like pointed, specific pieces. And then just his ability through like voiceover acting and entertainment to like bring the concept to life. It's been a lot of fun to do this with him.
Nah, that was great. We're going to move on. So everybody check out Call Me Limbo. It's anywhere that you can get a podcast. You can find it on Spotify, Apple, etc.
I'm gonna drop the link in the
yeah,
that's right, in the show notes.
I'm gonna drop the link. So in our next story, one of the problems that we have right now, and I think this might be the next. You know how we have war over oil? We're probably going to be having war over water in the future.
Not probably, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, I'm going to read the headline. It says 190 million children at risk from water-related crisis as UN holds first major water conference in 45 years. I'm just going to play a little bit of this.
And the UN says that water is a basic human right and that everyone on Earth should have access to it. But right now, about 2 billion people don't have safe drinking water and nearly 4 billion don't have access to basic sanitation. It is a crisis so serious that the UN held its first water conference in over 45 years this week, and they made one thing very clear. We are not on track to meet our global water goals by the end of the decade, and because of climate change, the situation is only getting worse, especially for young kids across Africa. NBC's Stephen Romo has more.
Access to clean water affects much more than hydration. The UN says without clean water, not only are a child's health and nutrition at risk, their education and safety are as well. It's the tragic reality for roughly 190 million children right now in sub-Saharan Africa.
This is a crisis that hits the whole world indeed, but I mean more so in Africa.
Ruben Bahia is UNICEF's regional advisor of water, sanitation, and hygiene, or WASH, for West and Central Africa. In a recent report, UNICEF found that these 10 countries are considered some of the most water insecure places on Earth.
Those countries are facing multiple priorities. We're talking about water supply here, but I mean, they also have priorities in terms of health. You have priorities in terms of education, in terms of livelihood of the people living there. So sometimes you have then these competing priorities in a fragile situation. Doesn't really help these sectors.
They go on to talk about how when some of the girls and women have to go walk miles and miles to get the water. Sometimes they're attacked, sometimes they're raped because they have to go out and find fresh water. And I just stopped it only because there's another clip I want to play. But anyone wants to jump in here?
These are the things I'm trying to be calm and not be upset, but and pop off. But water, we are literally like 75% water as human beings. This should be a global crisis. The way we treated COVID is the way we should treat things like hunger, thirst, etc. There's absolutely no reason. If we have cinnamon dental floss, we should be able to have clean mechanisms, which we do, because I always say this. The solutions aren't complicated. It's just that the system is corrupt. Because at the end of the day, we have filtration systems. We know how to build things so that this water can be clean. It's just not profitable. And unfortunately, it's because it's the people on the other side of the world that some people don't deem as deserving, because why don't they pull up by their bootstraps, et cetera, et cetera? We're not concerned with whether or not they can have water. However, they will be really concerned when they have to have those people evacuate, because now it's too late to do anything. Then they want to scream about, oh my God, immigration, blah, 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 blah. But when we have an opportunity to intervene and actually create good diplomatic relations with these countries. I mean, because who can hate the person that brings them water for those who just want to be selfish and it's not about a humanitarian bottom line? This really pisses me off. There's absolutely no reason in the world that people shouldn't have water. Basic things like water.
We have pipelines for oil, but we don't have pipelines for water.
I just want to add, there's a lot of water runoff that gets wasted and put back into the oceans. And how many thousands of years have we been around, and the technological age, the last 100 years, we haven't figured out a way to take the water in the oceans and make it drinkable. After all these years, all the technology, we can fly all over the planet. We can go to space. We can do all this stuff. We can't take, what is it, like 1% of the water on the earth is drinkable, right? So the other 99%, we haven't figured out how to make it work for us. I mean, couldn't we put some of our brightest minds working on that over the next, I mean, it should have been done many years ago, but.
Well, Johnny, let me show you in this clip the device that they have serving this town. Watch it. Look at this.
According to the World Economic Forum, around 2.2 million Americans are without running water or basic indoor plumbing, and more than 44 million have inadequate water systems. Sounds almost unimaginable, but it's not. As seen in Sarah Savner find out in McDowell County, West Virginia.
Inside this dilapidated building, where the roof is always threatening to cave in, sits one precious item.
What in the heck is this? That is an old turbine pump.
That decade-old pump is the only source of reliable, clean water.
Let me just pause it here real quick. Look at this pump for West Virginia, for this town. They got this one dilapidated looking, about to give out. And if this thing if it gives out, they're gonna have unclean water. I don't even know God knows how clean this water is coming out of this device. But
for about 300 residents. It's the only pump left that sends water through the pipes into their homes. Randy Whitaker does his best to help maintain it.
If you look at the facility, you think, no.
You think, no, I'm not drinking any of that.
Right, but it meets all regulatory standards.
It meets all regulatory standards. Okay.
Then what the hell is wrong with our regulatory standards? Because clearly something like that is a fool. The fact that these people get on this television screen and they push this type of nonsense, like the fact that Joe Manchin can walk into Senate without being clowned out of it. How dare we have the Build Back Better, all these climate infrastructures, and we let people like that dumb it down. Every time that man spoke, I'd be like, bruh, y'all water dirty because you don't want to do nothing. Like, you just wouldn't be allowed to speak. Like, this is a national emergency. At this point, send the national, I don't care who you have to send out there. This is when government's supposed to come in to secure life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. There's no life, there's no liberty, and you can't pursue happiness if you're dead. Because stuff like this is toxic, and we sit around and act like this is normal. From Flint to Jackson to West Virginia, I don't care who you vote for. You can vote for Donald Duck. That has no bearing on the fact that you deserve basic things like water in the richest country in the world. Why is this complicated? It's not.
It's not complicated, but the politics, the capitalism makes it complicated.
Well, they're trying to own water rights everywhere. That's what the final collapse of capitalism is going to be, them buying, because they already own the healthcare industry. You know, they're going to buy up water. They've been buying up the food supply, you know, in large swaths. It used to be independent farmers that would, you know, grow stuff and bring it to market. Now it's all the huge corporations. So water is the last, basic need that they're going to get their hands on. They've already taken up all the housing, right? So everybody's got to rent, you know, even if you own, you don't really own because the bank owns it. And so, you know, they're stripping everything from everybody that you have to come clamoring to them if you want to survive. And it's either going to go one way or the other. Either people are going to cave in and say, okay, all you rich people, please give me my drops for the day, please. Oh, sir, may I have another bowl of porridge? You know, or people are going to, like us, are going to say, no, I ain't falling for that. I'm going to do by whatever means necessary to prevent that from happening.
We are living Ronald Reagan's wet dream.
Yes.
And it pisses me off that we've gotten to this point, and people
privatization of everything,
and we still are. People are afraid to get up there and say this. Everyone recognizes that something actually, when the mic is on or when there's positions of power, vote. Y'all know me. I'm quick to be like, vote everybody out. I don't care. We can start from scratch and pull people from the phone book, because I think they would do a better job at managing this country than the people who are paid to keep us oppressed.
100%. As we end the show, I want to end on some good news. You guys ready?
Ready.
All right. So this is, I was looking for the video, but basically L.A. School Workers win historic deal after 3-day strike. And this was solidarity between the teachers, having solidarity with the workers, because they didn't have to strike. They were good. But they said, hey, you know what, to give support to our fellow workers, the janitors, the people who feed our kids, these, etc., all the other school workers, they said, hey, we're going to work together, and they got more money, and they got other concessions. And let me play this video and show how the class war is real on Fox Business.
The teachers went out on strike in solidarity, they say, with the support workers. It was actually a support worker strike. The teachers aren't in solidarity with them. For decades now, the teachers and the teachers' unions have been demanding more and more benefits in the form of what is known as an important acronym, OPEB, other post-employment benefits. That is luxury healthcare, life insurance, family members protected, benefits that regular working Californians couldn't dream of. It's adding up to billions and billions of dollars. That's where the money's going. It's totally unjustifiable. And if they just had the same health care as regular Californians do, you could raise the pay of those support workers that they're so in solidarity with by $7,000 per person.
Well, you know what? They did it anyway, and they were able to keep their health care, and they were able to have solidarity. This is before they won. So this is how they try to keep the working class divided. And Fox News is doing their job to perfection, but not in this case because they actually won and it didn't convince those people.
Just one thing to say about this. Proof of concept. Rinse and repeat. That's it. They proved it. They proved if they come together in solidarity and stand with each other and threaten the structure, that they can win. And now we need to rinse and repeat that across the nation on just all of it. I mean, I'm just sick of it.
Also,
shout out another hour.
Shout out to Michigan, because from what I saw, they repealed right to work in that state, which is a huge deal. That's going to allow unions to be able to build back up in that state, and hopefully they do build. And hopefully we see a new renaissance of worker power on the globe, because we see what's happening in France, we see what's happening in Israel, where they're protesting, they're out in the streets. Hundreds of thousands are out in the street. And here we're just getting started. All right, let's end the show. I'm going to give a shout out to our Patreon. Nancy Vancher, Pedro Hernandez, Deborah B, PJ Chris, Akibash Akita, and Zachary Gustan. Much love to y'all. And I am... Hopefully it's not too loud. I want my peoples to give us our word out. I'll go to you, David, first. Check out Call Me Limbo. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, Case, thank you for having me on. As usual, it's good to be back. I think what's really exciting for me, at least, is that I think we're literally living in real time through a societal transformation between BLM, the labor movements. And so I was like, I just want to make sure that we're all on the right side of history. And I think we are through these conversations, and they give me inspiration and hope. So thank you.
Much love to you, my man. Dave.
Always honored to be here. Thank you for having us. Always great to see you, Johnny. Y'all check out Call Me Limbo Pod, please. Thank you.
Yeah, Johnny.
Hey, what's up? Nice to be back again. Yeah, I'm really interested in getting to the strategy of seeing how we can make these things, these visions that we have, actually pan out. That's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah. I talked to Johnny. We talked a couple weeks ago about that book, No Bosses. He got me in contact with the author. We're setting up an interview, so I got to read the book first. So that's coming in about a month. So look out for that. That's going to be fun to hear about how we can get rid of the bosses. No more bosses, and we can make sure that we have. I would like to have a 4-day work week. Maybe less hours in the day, less work hours. Maybe like a 6-hour work day. We'll see, and definitely raise the wage. Shout out to Workers Strike Back. Their new one of their new initiatives is $25 an hour. Check out my Shama Shawan interview, and we talked about that. And much love to everybody. Let me give a quick shout out to the people in the chat. Mastermind Hour, the Jamon, PJ Holly, PJ Chris, Bryce Smith, Joy to the World, Paul Patrick, and too many to name, but Super Patriot, he left. Mastermind. Much love to y'all. Everybody, thank you again. See y'all next week. Have a great one. Could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and I appreciate that. Adios.